Everybody, welcome to another Chats with Chaudhry. Today, my guest is speaking to me from Italy, near Venice, and I'm delighted to be joined by Stefano Martini, who is responsible for special programs, medical devices development at Sanofi, because he spoke this week at the SMi Pre-Filled Syringes Conference on strategic platforms for pre-filled syringes. So we're going to talk about that today. So buongiorno, Stefano. How are you, my friend?
Hello, buongiorno, Rizwan. How are you? I'm very good today. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to meet you for the first time. Before we start talking about strategic platforms for pre-filled syringes, perhaps you could just tell people a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Why not? And so, hello, everyone. My name is Stefano Martini. I joined Sanofi in 2016 in the medical device development team. I'm responsible for special program. I'm a pharmaceutical technologist by education. Before Sanofi, I worked for 3 years in Amgen, Dublin, as responsible of their primary components forensic characterization lab. And before then, for a long time, 20 plus years as, let me say, expert of primary component manufacturing at OMPI, Stevanato Group, in different roles and different positions, from operation manager up to senior development engineer.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritson.
Thank you. So let's talk about strategic platforms for pre-filled syringes. And let me ask you a really basic question. What do you mean by strategic platforms, first of all?
Yeah, let me say, when we are dealing with medical devices, there is always a question raising, which is, will we have a customized approach to our components, to our drug device combination system, or could we leverage a platform approach? Let me say, this question is a viable question and adding value whenever you have, many products in your pipeline. And so maybe there are opportunities to leverage commonalities and modularities from different components at the end of the day to establish one single platform.
Right. Okay. So why do you think that approach is so important, though, in pharma development?
Yeah, this is a good question. It's a good question. Why? Because this is typically what happened, in the automotive field many years ago. When we had every single producer ideating, designing, developing its own components, and this for sure resulted in a dramatic increase of different options, not standardized, with requiring different approaches in terms of troubleshooting, in terms of life cycle management, and so on. What happened with Toyota? With Toyota, they started exactly identifying platform, identifying commonalities between different components, and started standardizing them. And by doing that, they were able to leverage lower costs, faster responses time, fast or short time to market, consistency in terms of quality, in terms of performances.
Right.
And this is exactly what is happening now, or since a few years with the medical device components. And in our case, in this during the Congress, we were talking about pre-filled syringes. Years ago, there were many different type of components, and now we are trying to standardize and making them as a part of a platform approach. So meaning identifying the design space, a common design space over our pipeline, identifying the boundaries of this design space, and then choosing the best component fit to become a platform component.
Right. Okay. So talking about that then, and looking at pharma specifically, what do you think the main challenges are in terms of developing that pharma product?
Let me say, as we know, in pharma companies, developing a product, a drug product, is a very costly and long process. Typically, I say this requires years. The last pandemic situation is quite an exception. Companies were able to develop a vaccine in few months, let me say, but typically developing a drug can take a lot of time, 3 to 5, 7 years. And typically during this approach to drug development, the identification of the medical device, of the component used to deliver the drug is made at a very late stage. And by doing that way, few critical errors in the designing of the component can really affect a very long and costly activity, which has happened since a long time. And this can be dramatic. Having platform component, and so having a platform of standards, standard components can help us in being right the first time, because we know we have already identified which are the boundaries of our design space, and so we know perfectly that that drug will fit the device component we are going to choose, and that will be the best option to deliver our drug to our patients. This is one typical challenge, so time. Another typical challenge is when to develop, to approach a platform development, we need to establish a team of experts, typically. They are subject matter experts on different topics, on different domain of expertise, and all working together to design and develop the new component, the new medical device, the platform component. Right. Typically, in the past, this was something which was delegated to R&D centers, which were specialized in developing drugs. But I say to develop a primary component or a drug delivery combination system is a different matter. Right. And so these require in some way to how can I say, to have a team of responsible people, which is no longer how to say, a local team. Typically is a transversal team working with different elements of expertise in the team, working all together, and this is another challenge. Last but not least is, and this typically happens in life cycle management. So when you have identified and chosen a proven component to deliver a drug, and maybe during life cycle management, you identify some small improvement in performances, and to do this, you start working on the platform component to improve it. At that point in time, and you are successful, you validate the new, let me say, featured component, platform component. At that point in time, the typical question which can raise is, do we need to spread this improvement, this little modification to the other products of our pipeline, and so leverage the best opportunity we can have from this improvement? And I say from a standard point of view, the answer would be yes. In reality, at that point in time, the challenge are the regulatory constraints, the costs. And so the typical question is, do we really need? And there isn't, how to say, one single answer.
Sure.
This is typically a case-by-case decision to take during the process.
Okay. Well, you talked about the challenges, but what about limitations in components in developing the platform components?
I would say that also the limitation drawbacks typically, I don't see limitation in the medical device, in the components. The important point is to find a modularity, a common design space within the pipeline, allowing leveraging the same performances. For sure, this is an important question to ask ourselves at the very beginning of our path, when to evaluate if in our pipeline really there are molecules allowing the identification of a common design space. Otherwise, we risk, because it's, however, to develop a platform is a costly activity, time and resourcing, absorbing a lot of time and resources. And so if this evaluation is not made in a carefully, we risk to not gain the real advantages we can have when identifying a platform components.
Brilliant. Okay. So, sorry, I can hear some drilling. Is there drilling or something in the background I can hear?
I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. It sounded like a flavor.
I'm as a lot of houses, in Italy, they are ancient buildings, and I say
right, okay,
the flat beside.
That's fine. As long as we know what it is, that's cool. So, one other question.
This is the real life.
Well, it is. Yeah, this is where it goes exactly. So, don't. That's the beauty of doing things on Zoom. So, you talked about the teams and stakeholders. So, how instrumental are they in the success of the platform?
Yeah, I say. And this is a key point, let me say, to develop a platform approach to develop a platform for drug device combination system is really critical to identify teams, and so is really a teamwork over transversal teams with different capabilities, expertise, from risk management to quality to device design, engineering, manufacturing processes, all these regulatory, all these experts have to be in the same team, which is typically, again, a transversal team. They have to work together with a strong how to say, implication of supplier. Suppliers are really key in the success of a platform, because typically it's really difficult to find platform components that are exactly off the shelf. However, they need some little modification, little improvement, or they need some special process to be added on. And at this point in time, a strong relationship with our suppliers, with a good understanding of their processes, and establishing, how to say, win-win projects is really key.
Well, collaboration is the key word here, isn't it? Because
yeah, absolutely.
It was a buzzword in 2020, and I think it will be the buzzword going forward as well. So a couple of other questions, though, because I've been running a series this month looking back at 2020 and looking ahead to 2021. So just very quickly, two questions for you. Looking back at 2020, what word would you use to describe it? And are there any positives you would take from last year?
Okay, so digital explosion.
Right.
Let me say, this was something we really discovered, every one of us, in 2020, especially who was working as I was in a design development team. We really discovered the ability to work, the ability to smart work, to home work, and we really, let me say, improved our capacities to use digital tools, and this was for sure something that will change our approach to our general approach to work, to the way of working, you know, in the next few years. We discovered that we need, yes, for sure, good people. We are, all of us, we are good people, but we need also good digital environment, good tools, and we need to spread this knowledge, you know, all around us.
Fantastic. And you mentioned right at the beginning, when you were talking about obviously how quickly the vaccine's been developed, and the time frame for that has been much shorter than the traditional timescale in terms of developing drugs. So how do you think then, going forward, what will be the big trends then in terms of developing platforms, medical devices going forward in terms of timescale? I mean, do you think now that things will become a lot shorter because of digital technology, or what do you think the big trends will be going forward?
Yeah, let me say, this is a good question. The pandemic situation was really an exceptional situation where we were in big troubles. Nevertheless, there were a lot of money, a lot of funding, you know, for these activities. And this was one of the main reasons, because at the end of the day, we were able to cut times without using shortcuts, cut times, and to really take some decision risks at risk, because behind we had funding.
Yeah.
For sure, development of products using platform component has allowed pharma companies in the last few years to really reduce the time for to identify the best component, and for sure allowed the ability to identify a range of possible different components to use depending on the clinical phase, on the commercial phase, and so identifying the better component for each phase. And I guess this is and this was a very good advantage that probably years ago, without a platform approach, was definitely too costly and with an excessive absorption of resources and timing, and so not definitely viable. A platform approach gives us the possibility to have a sort of list of requirements to look at, identifying the best ones for our drug depending on their chemical and physical characteristics, and then saying, okay, this is the right component, or this is the range of possible components. We can switch one to each other during the development path, depending on the better solution we will really identify in the real life. You know what I mean?
Right, brilliant. Okay, so thank you for taking the time out to talk to me. If people want to know more, obviously, if you have attended the conference, you can access Stefano's presentation and all the other presentations on demand by going to the website. However, if people have not had a chance to be a delegate at this show or the conference, where else can they get more information, Stefano?
So I say you can find more information on these on the SMi website, for sure, where there are all recordings of our speech, and that's it.
Right, okay. All right, well, look, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to me. That was really interesting. I hope, viewers, you found that useful as well. As Stefano just mentioned, if you're a delegate to the SMi event, then please make sure you check out his presentation if you didn't see it. It's going to be available on demand. If you weren't a delegate, then if you've got any questions of anything that Stefano spoke about just now, put them below the comments on the video, because I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them, or message him directly on LinkedIn. I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear from you if you've got any questions.
Absolutely, we can answer specific questions directly, and that's our job.
Fantastic. Well, Stefano, much appreciated taking the time out to talk to me out your schedule. Just so you know, I only asked Stefano yesterday if he would do this with me, and he kindly came back and said yes straight away. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. So all I can say is have a wonderful 2021. Maybe safe, healthy, and successful.
Yeah, I hope so.
And the same to everybody else watching. And until next time, stay well and stay safe. And ciao.
Ciao. Have a nice day.